One. Hi, my name is Brandy Starr. I'm here with Tyrika Williams of Depression Doesn't Care, and we are here today to share her story. So, Tyrika, thank you very much.
Thanks. Thanks for doing this with me, Brandy.
You are welcome. So, the first question that I want to ask is I just want you to tell me about your brother Mike. Tell me who he was as a man, who he was as your brother, who he was as an artist. Help to paint the picture for all of our viewers of who is the person that we're talking about today.
That's a really big question. Mike was an amazing person. He was an amazing person in his 27 years on this earth. But most importantly, he was my brother. He was my middle brother. He was always my little brother. He was Little Mike. As he got older, he hated that we called him Little Mike, and eventually we stopped, but he was always Little Mike to me. Oh, wow. How do I sum up? How do I sum him up? He was an artist, he was a producer, he was an animal lover, he was going to school to be a veterinarian. He was an amazing brother, an amazing uncle. He was he was a special guy. He really, really was.
Okay, and so there is a reason why you are telling Mike's story today, as opposed to him being able to share his story himself. And so I'd like for you to share what that reason is.
That's a good question. I'm sharing his story most importantly because he's not here to share it. He should be. I wish he was. And to be honest, if he was, he wouldn't share it. He wouldn't be upset with me for sharing it now. I would never do this without what I know would be his blessing, but he's not here to tell his story, and that's because he did not survive his battle with depression, borderline personality disorder, and a lot of years of anxiety, and most likely probably a good deal of PTSD. But he didn't win his fight with that, and it definitely was many, many years of a battle. Whew, he didn't make it. So the reason that I'm telling his story is in memory of him because he was a fighter. He was strong. He battled so many demons. And even though he didn't win, he would want someone else to win because he didn't. Ooh, yeah, he's not here to tell his story. He committed suicide, and the anniversary of his of his death is coming up. It's April 9th. And it's a really big deal to our family. We don't ignore it, we don't gloss over it, we acknowledge it. We cry, we embrace our feelings, and each of us handles it differently. You know, I've embraced it. My parents have come to terms with it. I even named my youngest son after him in memory of him. I would much rather he be here to tell his story. I would much rather he be here to talk to give his gift of musical production to the world. But out of his death has come Depression Doesn't Care, and he's the main reason I started this project. So instead of him not being here to tell his story, I'm telling his story on his behalf, hopefully to inspire someone, to save someone, most importantly, but to let someone know that they're not alone and this battle can be won. I don't tell his story just to tell his story. I tell it because I too live with depression. My story's already been shared, but it's important that his story is out there as well because he's the heartbeat behind Depression Doesn't Care. He really is. I do this for him. And I do it for all of us that live with depression, anxiety, whatever mental illness. I do it for in his name for all of us.
And so my last question really is, always thinking about how his story and Depression Doesn't Care can help other people in similar situations. The question that a lot of people always have or really look to relate to is kind of seeing themselves in the things that he went through. Are there any key things that you can identify either in his life, in his personality, things that have happened around him that can help others to identify themselves in similar situations. And the second part of that is, knowing what you know of his history and his battle, what advice or empathy or understanding could you offer to others that really can relate and feel that they are going through similar things so that their destiny is different than his?
I look back, and I look back often. And when he first passed, I look back wondering what I could have done differently, what I should have done differently, what I should have caught that he said, what I should have recognized was a sign, what I shouldn't have said in response to things that he said, because at the time I wasn't living with depression and I didn't understand what he was going through. I think I thought I did. I really believe at the time I thought I understood. I did the research. I looked up the medications. He was tired of chasing medication, I'll put it that way. He'd been diagnosed in his teens and he was a cutter. He had been a cutter for some time and then he'd been hospitalized a few times. So it's not that we didn't know. We knew early, and my parents did all the right things to try and get him help. We recognized the signs. We got him to the doctors, but once he got to the age where he could make his own medical decisions, he didn't want to be tied down in a hospital. He didn't want to be tied down by a doctor. And that's things that I've come to find in my years that I can understand why. You already feel locked up and sheltered in your own head. He didn't want that in real life. So I understood it. But looking back, if we could have convinced him or if he would have made the choice to stick through therapy, to stick through the medications and not just try to ride it out and live through it, could things have been different? Maybe. Maybe not. There's no way to know that, and there's no sense in beating myself up or, rehashing over and over what could have been different. This is what it is. And I'm at peace with that. However, I would definitely recommend, I'm not even sure what I would recommend. Keep your eyes out. Listen. Don't push advice. Listen to what someone is saying. Observe what differences are you seeing? What oddities are you seeing? What changes are you seeing? And don't impose your thoughts, your feelings, your experiences. Truly listen to hear, to understand, not to respond, because there's a message that's being relayed. And often it's not covered in a bunch of words. We're telling you that we hurt. We're telling you that we're struggling. We're telling you we're tired. We're frustrated. We don't know what to do. Those are opportunities. Those are cries for help. A cry for help is not always a slitting of the wrist or any type of attempt of a suicide. There are signs way, way beyond that. Listen, don't judge, don't turn away. Seek out all forms of therapy, please, not just spiritual, not just medicinal, but a holistic approach. That would be my biggest thing. Don't judge, don't stigmatize, I think that's a word, but just be there as best as you can. And if you're not sure how, reach out. Ask someone else, ask someone with experience, but reach out. That's what I would offer.
And then my last question is there anything about Mike's story or the mission of Depression Doesn't Care or anything that I haven't asked about that you want to make sure to share?
I believe the message is always, we're not strange, we're not weird, we're not bad, there's not something wrong with us, we're not lazy, we're different. We're wired different. It's not a choice, it's not a lack of faith, it's not a, there's so many stigmas out there. We're no different than someone with diabetes or someone with cancer. It's an illness. And it's an illness that we don't have control over. It's an illness that puts I always say it puts a cloud of darkness. I always think of it as a dark, like a medieval chain link fence that just is draped over you, and you can't move, you can't think. All you can do is see through this chain link fence, and it alters your perception of reality. It really does. But don't hold that against us, because we don't mean to. We don't not love you, whoever you are. We don't love you any less. We don't we think you're upset with us. We think you're tired of us. We think you don't want to be bothered with us anymore. And it's not usually because of anything you did. Depression not only doesn't care, it lies, it lies, it lies. Don't listen. Don't fall for it. Seek help, please. And if it's someone you love, I want to believe you'll see some sort of difference. You'll recognize the faintest change. It's okay to question it. It is, because you're better to question it than to overlook it and look back later. And I do that. And I'm sure my parents do that too. You look back and you'll always wonder. You'll learn to not beat yourself up over it, but you want to help in whatever way you can. Whatever feels like help, offer it. Don't push it, don't shove it, don't enforce it, but offer it. We just want to know that you're here to be with us, to help us, and to support us.